Hi, I'm Droolbatz. It's so nice to see you. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2013 horror film Hell's Caretaker. I'll be reviewing it based on its premise, its production value and artistic choices, and finally, how it compares or contrasts to other films of the genre. I hope you enjoy. The film opens with the 10-year high school reunion of the class of 2003. They're all getting together and having a good time and decide to hang out for the rest of the weekend at one of the members' parents' home. His parents are deceased and he works in the city, so he's been having a caretaker maintain the property. So they all go up and are ready to just kick it in the woods. They're gonna go skiing if there's snow. The caretaker is an older man. He actually gets along with them pretty well too, and they kind of let him join in on the fun a little bit. One of the girls who's at the cabin is not actually part of the class. She's just visiting there because her boyfriend was friends with all of them and was in the class. She is a model and she's trying to branch out into acting a little bit, and she heard that she might have gotten cast in a very small role in a very small movie, but she's really excited about it and wants to go in and meet with the people to talk about it. But the problem is it's already dark and the mountain roads are a little bit treacherous and nobody really wants to take her in on such bad roads. But she's getting kind of insistent. Because they were reluctant, the caretaker offers. On the car ride down, the caretaker gets a little bit creepy. He starts reaching over and grabbing her hair while he's driving, and he starts talking about this fawn that he has been hunting. The model is upset that he would hunt a baby deer, and he gets really angry that she's dissing him that way. And she's like, no one should kill a baby deer. I don't like, hunters who kill babies. Come on. He gets really upset, and his creepy behavior scares her, so she starts to run. What the heck is going on with this weird man? Will she make it out alive? Will her friends come to her aid? This movie was a very straightforward horror movie, but it suffered, unfortunately, from some pacing problems. It's only an hour and 14 minutes, but the movie felt much longer than that because a lot of the scenes and banter between the characters was very, very repetitive. The editing of this film was not tight. The camera work was good, a lot of very smooth shots and a lot of creative angles, but unfortunately the editing was just not very tight, and that also aided the over-repetitive nature of some of the sequences. Also repetitive was the music. The background music in some of the scenes was very, very repetitive, and the same song showed up in two separate scenes, actually. If you've ever seen that scene in The American Office where Michael Scott's really sad and he's in his office trying to play sad music, but he doesn't want to actually buy it on iTunes, so he's just playing the sample part of the song that's 20 seconds long over and over and over again. That's what the background music was like during the opening scene, which was quite long, the reunion scene, and later on when they're partying at the house and smoking weed and drinking the Vermont version of moonshine. It was also kind of a weird choice in music, I thought. It was a rock song, so I kind of liked it at first, but it was this woman saying I wanna F you over, and that was the only lyric, which is fine for a rock song, I guess, but it was just really odd as a choice for a reunion song, I guess, unless you really, really, really hate your high school classmates. The music was quite repetitive and just didn't really match the vibe of the rest of the movie, and I think as a result, the tone of the movie suffered, and the film just really wasn't suspenseful. There were several scenes where some spooky stuff was kind of going on, but there was no background music at all, or the background music was kind of more like a rock tune instead of a suspenseful da-da-da-da-da kind of sound, and as a result, the film didn't have as much gravity as I think it could have had for these certain scenes. The tension just wasn't very high for most of the movie. Most of the suspenseful and scary things did not happen for the bulk of the movie. One single scary thing happened in the exact middle of the movie, and then later on several scary things, but the characters were fairly oblivious that anything had even gone wrong, so they didn't feel the tension, and as a result the audience didn't either. The script I thought was fine, but the acting was a little bit all over the place. Some actors I thought were very good. Some of them were not very good at all, and so having the contrast of some very convincing actors and some very not convincing actors in the same sequences kind of brought the whole thing down and kind of tarnished the efforts of the good actors, I thought. Some of the stunts were fairly convincing and some were not. This is partly the acting, I think, and partly the coordinating of the film. Some of the ways that they tried to pull off stunts, like someone getting hit by a car and things like that, were very well done, but others, like pushing a guy down the stairs and punching him in the face, were not well done, and it was pretty obvious they weren't actually hitting the guy in the face, and the sound effect didn't really emphasize anything. And that said, the audio was very clear. Despite the repetitive music, the dialogue was very easy to understand, very crisp, so I don't think you'll need subtitles at all if you're hard of hearing, and that was kind of a pleasant thing to note. I would say quality-wise, the production value of this movie was just a real mixed bag. Now I'm going to be discussing how this movie stands apart from or blends into other films of the genre. I will be spoiling the movie, so if you don't want any spoilers, please take this as your cue to leave now. If you want to watch this movie without my spoilers, I provided the link in the description, so click on that and have a good time. So the caretaker grabs the model. He manages to catch her by like throwing something and knocking her out. He then kills her and violates her body. One of the main guys at the house had brought his dog with him. Unfortunately, the vet had told him that his dog had a brain tumor and that they'd probably have to put him down. But he was reluctant to do it, so the caretaker says, well, I'll put your dog down for you and you can have a nice funeral for him. However, he thinks the dog is fine and he says, here, pup, and puts the dog, Porter, in his, personal room and buries the body of the model, and they have this dog funeral for this model. The other friends don't even really give a thought as to whether or not their friend made it safely because there's not really cell service. They kind of proceed about their day. They're going skiing or trying to, some of them go up with the caretaker in an airplane and they have fun with him. The caretaker keeps trying to get this one girl to help him catch and skin a deer and make deer jerky, but she keeps saying, no, I'm a vegetarian, thank you, but no. She actually gets along with him because she rides with him in his airplane, but she just, no, I'm a vegetarian. And he's like, okay, whatever. Later on, she goes out to see him when he happens to be skinning the deer, and she's a little bit grossed out, but she just wanted to thank him. She notices, oh, hey, you have a dog. She's a little bit drunk on moonshine, and she goes, oh, that looks like, the dog Porter, he. And then she realizes it is the dog, and she goes, wait a second, then what did we bury? The others find out that the dog is alive, and the caretaker immediately has to cover his tracks. He starts killing them off one by one in a very traditional slasher flick type sequence. The vegetarian girl actually fires a crossbow into him and is able to kind of stop him while she and her friend, who's a former Marine and is in a wheelchair, try to escape. They almost make it. Somehow the caretaker is still alive after being shot with this huge crossbow. He runs out and shoots the vegetarian girl with his little pistol before she can escape, and she dies. But the former Marine, he's in a wheelchair, but he's still a Marine, and he's tough as hell. He grabs a flashlight and just starts beating the caretaker until he's unconscious. And then he gets out of his wheelchair and pulls himself up into the car and backs it over the caretaker, killing him. Unfortunately, all his other friends are dead, so he tries to drive into town for help, but the car runs out of gas. He tries to pull himself out, but can't get very far without his wheelchair and ends up freezing to death. The police show up on the scene the next morning, startled to find all these dead bodies. They find the dog alive and well, safely hidden in the truck that the Marine had tried to take into the town. So there's one survivor, and it's a dog. So this movie is advertised as being a very straightforward horror film, and I would agree that it is. It follows a very traditional path of, a slasher flick. It's very similar to many movies where just a group of friends go into a remote area to party, and a local guy starts killing them one by one. It's classic horror movie stuff. The way that this movie kind of stood out as being a little bit unique to me is that it was very, very diverse in its cast. Everybody looked completely different. The Marine in the wheelchair was black. The vegetarian girl was of Asian descent. The old man was really old. Even the white guys had very different hairstyles, very different accents. They were very easy to tell apart. Some low-budget movies tend to hire actors who look the same. Some high-budget movies do this as well. They hire actors who all look the same and all sound the same. And as a viewer, it is so difficult to tell what's going on if you're not super familiar with their faces. This movie, they all had very different physical appearances and they all had very different personalities. The vegetarian girl, she was kind of outspoken and playful. She had a voice kind of like Bonnie from Family Guy. One of the guys just wanted to party all the time. The other one was more serious. He was concerned about his dog. The Marine was always making jokes, but he was very tough. Things like that. They all had very different personalities, and so that was really enjoyable. And it was just kind of nice to see representation like that, like diversity in a casual movie. Thought that was good, and that's not super common at the moment in horror movies. The other way that this movie was unique is that the dog survived. That sounds really, really stupid, but a lot of times in horror movies, when people get suspicious that someone is up to no good, like a serial killer, usually the serial killer has killed an animal and they see that the animal is dead, or like their pet dog goes missing and they suspect the caretaker would have done it. In this case, the caretaker killed someone's girlfriend, which is bad, but he didn't kill the dog. He left the dog and the dog survived. And there are a lot of movies where people kill the dog just to kind of get an emotional rise out of people, and it's kind of easy bait. This movie avoided that, and I don't know, that was kind of a nice element, I guess. I don't normally watch the credits, but I did watch them this time, and the dog got top billing. It said Porter, played by Layla the Dog, like top billing. It was great. If I had to rate this movie, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. I appreciated the classical nature of this horror movie. It was feature length, but it was short enough that, you know, it didn't feel like a strain on your time like some really long movies do. But the movie didn't feel very tense, and enough of the elements, like some actors were good, but some were bad. The music was not good. The editing just was wonky. Things like that kind of just brought the atmosphere of the movie down. I wasn't scared at all, and it was a little bit hard for me to get invested in the movie. It just didn't feel as good as other low-budget movies. This movie was hosted by Kings of Horror, I believe, and I watch movies from them quite often, and they're all usually lower budget movies, but others have been better than this one as far as like level of professionalism and the polished look. I do admire the fact that these people tried to make this movie, and I hope that the director continues. I think if he kind of gets a better editor and like maybe some better actors and learns a little bit more about how to use music, he could have some very good classical type horror movies in his future. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it was helpful for you. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this movie. Please like this video if you liked my review, and please consider subscribing if you are interested in future reviews. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.